In today's video, I want to talk to you about flour substitutions for baking and making things like pancakes, waffles, and other breakfast favorites. I share a lot of pancake recipes and treats and baked goods on my websites, and obviously I make videos about them. And the number one question I often get is, can I substitute eggs for the flour? So in today's video, I'm going to answer if you can use oat flour, a 1-to-1 all-purpose gluten-free flour mix, whole wheat flour, almond flour, and coconut flour when baking. Now, if you're trying to make baked recipes without the refined flour, I should tell you that my newest cookbook, Clean Treats, has no wheat flour at all. The only flour that is grain derived inside is oat flour, and then there are also some recipes that use almond flour and some coconut flour. So if you're just tired of converting recipes from across the internet to suit your clean eating and gluten-free dietary needs, check out the Clean Treats cookbook. The link for it is gonna be right below the video. Obviously, the first flour that I like to substitute for all-purpose flour is oat flour. Oat flour is simply a great choice because it's naturally gluten-free. Now, given that your oats are not cross-contaminated, so make sure you check the packaging if you have celiac disease. Now, you can substitute oat flour for all-purpose flour, typically at about 1-to-1 ratio. You can even make oat flour at home in a blender or food processor by simply blending oats into a fine flour-like texture. Super easy, right? Now, oat flour will work great on pancakes, waffles, cookies, muffins, brownies, and quick breads. You know, the type that it's baked inside a loaf pan like banana bread. Now, I'm gonna make sure to link some recipes for you to try out with oat flour below this video. One thought, you cannot substitute oat flour if you want to make a loaf of bread. There is no gluten in oat flour to activate with yeast, so oat flour is not a good idea for baking breads, cinnamon rolls, or any other recipe that uses yeast to rise. Up next, the all-purpose gluten-free flour mix. I even keep it in a different color container at home. Now, I get this question all the time. Can I use a mix that is gluten-free instead of all-purpose white flour? The short answer is yes. Now, make sure that the packaging does say 1-to-1 and that it is recommended for the type of recipe that you're trying to create. Some are better for cookies and quick breads, and if used in something like a pancake, you're gonna feel like you're eating sand. In many of my recipes, I will add a note that says this recipe will work with a 1-to-1 all-purpose gluten-free flour after testing it, and I will also make sure to link the one that used to test it. Now, if you want to substitute all-purpose flour for whole wheat flour, the ratio is about 1 cup of all-purpose to almost a full cup of whole wheat. It's really about 7/8. So like I said, almost. That is because whole wheat flour is denser, heartier, and it weighs more ounce per ounce or gram per gram because it also has the bran part of the wheat. If you measure it 1-to-1, you're gonna get a dense baked goods and you'll likely have, sadly, to throw it out. Now, if you're mid-mixing and you just ran out of all-purpose white flour and want to finish measuring out what the recipe calls for, then you'll get good results with a 50-50 ratio with just about any recipe. So if the recipe calls for 1 cup of all-purpose flour and say you only have about half a cup, you can top it off with the other half of whole wheat flour. When I bake cakes, I typically use what they call cake flour or pastry flour. This cake flour is simply white flour that comes from a softer wheat that is designed for baking. Think soft baked goods like croissants or yellow cake. So if you want to whip up some pancakes like these or a delicious loaf of double chocolate chip, banana bread, or maybe some cookies, and all you have around is cake or pastry flour, you can definitely use that. A quick note, cake flour or pastry flour is not recommended for bread making or baked goods that use yeast. On to the almond flour question. Can you use almond flour in place of all-purpose flour in recipes? Most of the time, the answer is yes. But here's the deal. If you have a bag of almond flour and you want to make something delicious with almond flour. I highly suggest that you use a recipe that was specifically tested and developed to yield an amazing result with almond flour. Just like in the Clean Treats cookbook, you'd never know that I used almond flour in my chocolate sheet pancake or the brownies, you know? Now, your grandmother's incredible cookie recipe is not going to be amazing when you simply swap her all-purpose flour for almond flour. Now, while some people say, yes, totally substitute it 1-to-1, I just don't recommend it. Almond flour is expensive because it's made from ground almonds, and you'll likely have to adjust all the ratios in the recipe. It's just simply not a great idea. And finally, the coconut flour. Coconut flour is actually not a flour at all. It's made from unsweetened, dehydrated coconut that has been ground until it's achieved a flour-like texture. Unfortunately, it does not behave like traditional all-purpose flour at all. For this reason, it's just never a good idea to use coconut flour in place of all-purpose flour, since it's about 10 times more absorbent. So if you're just trying to use up the coconut flour that's in your pantry, just find recipes that were specifically created to use it. Like these snickerdoodles from the Clean Treats cookbook, you'd never know the difference. Now, I'd love to know in a comment below how you're substituting all-purpose flour and in what recipes, and how it has worked best for you. In short, there are substitutes that you can use instead of all-purpose flour in your baked recipes. But as always, I recommend that you find recipes from a reputable source that have been tested and specifically created for the ingredients that you have on hand. Make sure to check the recipes right below the video to help you get started with your baking journey. And while you're down there, click that red subscribe button because a new recipe video comes out every single week. See you next time.